Come now and meet a family you will like to know. Their name's Forsythe, and they're not just a new television family, they're real people. Will Forsythe is the husband and father. His wife is Joyce, and as her family name was Wilson, they took that for their first boy. Wilson is in his final year at school. Samuel is 9, with a seriousness about him at times. And Muriel is just at the age when Daddy is the big man in her life. So here they are, the Forsythe family, and they're a farm family and proud of it. This program's about them and the way they live on their family farm.
There's my house and buildings, and now you can see the fields. There's not quite 30 acres. That's a small farm, and there's 300,000 of them in this country. I wouldn't call it a model farm, because it isn't. We do a little bit of everything, and that's the way we make our living. It's by no means down in the world either. The farm's just as good as I can afford to make it. It's good soil and light and loamy, and it produces a good deal one way and another. It's my own work, with the family's help, and Joyce's Uncle Robert's as well. Potatoes are only one of the things I grow on the farm. But you can see for yourself. Have a look round while the rest of us are busy and get a good whiff of fresh air.
The name Forsythe has been in this land for over 300 years. Their ancestors came from Fife in Scotland, and they cut a farm out of the moss and drained it. They made it a place to live in.
I wonder what they'd think now, seeing the baker's van up at the house. But it was those people of mine who made this place and gave it its character. I suppose they brought the black-faced sheep, too, from the Scottish hills. Nowadays I cross them with the border Leicester to give good meat as well as a good fleece. But I'm not wanting to fill you up with facts and figures of farming. There are other things to do around here. The early lambs will catch an early market, and I think I should have 6 or so ready for them. And just at this time of the year, there's a calf we put out to join the others in the meadow. This one takes a bit of persuading.
Will Forsythe's farm is in County Antrim, Ulster. The 6 Mile Water Valley is good farming country, filled with small farms just like his. The land is moist. Buds burst into bloom while your back's turned. Lots of glens and streams divide it up and drain it well, but they make for small fields, and not many of them are on the level.
And there's something else that is very important. In this one field, I've got 3 different kinds of soil. I'll let one piece stay in grass and put the other bit in oats. That's what you have to learn in this farming job of ours. But running a farm this size wasn't always one man's job. When my father was alive, he had me working with him full time. We got up at 5 in the morning to do the milking. Now we have a milking machine, and I can milk the cows in half the time it took us in those days.
By the time breakfast's over, Will's day is well begun. He uses no hard help, none at all. Instead of paying wages, he's invested in machines, £1,000 worth of tractor and implements. They make it possible for one man to do the work of 3 all through the farming year. They're his extra hands and arms and fingers.
We use the disker to break the lee land for tillage. The muck spreader is the only machine I hire for work in the fields. It saves a lot of time and lets me get on with other work. The rest of the tools are my own, and I couldn't very well do without them.
But Will Forsythe has no blind faith in machinery. He says each one's got to earn its keep, or he wouldn't have it about the place. And some jobs can be done better by 2 pairs of hands than by any machine.
There's one thing hasn't changed, and that's my neighbour. Ernie Scott's father worked with my father, and I work with him, and he helps me. Potato planting is one of those jobs that we share on each other's farms. Doing it by hand allows us to put them in with bigger sprouts, and they come through a week or so earlier than if they were put in by machine. We get them in the ground when it's just right, because there's 2 of us on the job. This is the sort of thing we call neighbouring.
And neighbouring doesn't just begin and end on the farm, where work's more easily done because of it. The neighbourhood carries it on in everything they do, especially in the winter.
Gentlemen, the next dance will be a Afraid of Iron waltz, and I want to see everyone on the floor, please. So come along.
Winter is the time when people with buses and pictures and everything on their doorsteps say to us, "Whatever do you find to do?" We wouldn't change it for anything. There's a lot more fun to be found here than in your city dance halls. No loneliness here, with all the farmers of the neighbourhood and all their wives and girlfriends enjoying themselves like anything. Joyce and I leave the farm to look after itself of a winter's evening and get away down to the village to play whist. You know, a look comes into people's eyes when I say the trouble with country life isn't finding things to do, but finding time to do them in. It's perfectly true. Joyce also has her outside interests, dressmaking down at the village hall a mile away. Our village has plenty happening for a small place. The map on the board looked much the same when I was at school, all except the new road and roundabout. Samuel's schoolmates are nearly all farmers' sons, just like ours. Down the road through the village, you find our local industry, the milk depot. There's my 2 churns from this morning. They smell the milk and they sample it for taste and they keep records of everything. The records are often useful to us farmers. There's an old tale that a farmer's gallon is never the same as a dairy one. But don't you believe a word of it. They get full measure from me anyway.
The workers at the depot are their friends and neighbours, the same as the rest of the village. And now the milk's going in for pasteurization, and the samples have gone over to the laboratory. They say 6,000 gallons go through every day from 300 farms.
They check it for everything. They filter it for sediment and test it for butter, fat and other solids, and keeping quality and so on. We soon hear if anything's wrong. I can't say our village is much different from any other. The old forge has gone now to make way for the new road, and Mrs. Vint's shop hasn't changed as long as I can remember it.
Good morning, Miss Forsythe.
Good morning, Mrs. Vint.
Usual?
Half a pint of tea, 2 pounds of sugar, 1 pound of margarine, half a pound of cooking, 1 pound of butter.
Neither a farmer's wife nor a farmer, though, find themselves just stuck on the farm or in a village. Farming is a business, and there's the meal to be bought or seeds to be ordered, and that business takes him to town, to his market town. Here, the shop that lives by the farmer, and here, the bank where the milk check's paid in every month. This is essential working capital. Will Forsythe's real capital is in his land. He owns it. He's not just a tenant. His dairy herd's his mainstay, and the milk check is ready money. He runs a bank account, but not an overdraft. Every small farmer, to be successful, must be his own good manager. And the family's future is contained here in another sense, for it's in the town that the elder boy, Wilson, goes to school.
Two sons can't split a 30-acre farm between them. It looks as if Wilson anyway is bound to leave the farm. His masters say he's got a talent for physics and maths, and he's hoping for a science degree, just so long as he gets a scholarship. He's definitely got a scientific bent, and by the looks of things, he might make the grade for the university. At least we hope he will. Now, Samuel is quite different. He's the budding farmer of us. You've seen me use a muck spreader for this, but Samuel is doing it the hard way. It's strange how it comes out in the young. The toys he plays with are farming toys, a model tractor and trailers. And you can't keep him off the jobs round the farm. Though I sometimes wonder what sort of a living it'll be when his time comes to run a farm. Just take a look at this sweet chicken. None of the rest of us have anything to do with the poultry. That's Joyce's business. And I don't mind telling you it is a business, and all her own work. She feeds them, does everything for them, and in fact they're her part of the farm. She's got about 200 light Sussex hens, and she believes in natural surroundings and letting them run on free range, rather than deep litter. The money from the eggs goes towards the housekeeping, and she has something over for herself. Hens have their place in the scheme of things, and for Joyce, it's more than just a few round the house.
And with the eggs, our interest don't stop in the village or the town. They go to the big city, to the packing station, where they go through candling to check their quality, and so to the grading machines.
I don't altogether hold with packing stations, but that's another story. Every now and again, we go to the city too. An agricultural show was a good excuse for my wife to brush up her knowledge of poultry. But I know she was also thinking of a new hat. We left the boys to concentrate on ice cream and such like things. Ernie and me were to be found at some of the machinery stands, and we went on to have a try at one of the new lines of manure loaders. I had something else in my mind as well. I wanted a new tractor. My petrol one was getting too dear to run the long jobs. There's history for you. In the end, I left Ernie to find what I wanted in a good second-hand yard. This was the tractor that turned out to be just the job. Good condition, and at my price too, £100 odd. I reckoned it was well worth it. It would come out to the farm in a few days. Meanwhile, there was that business of the new hat for Joyce, and something else as well. The other big project of the year, besides buying the tractor, I mean, was putting in electricity from the mains. Now, don't you be thinking we didn't have electricity. We had our own homemade brand. The men who came to do the wiring were amused at my homemade plant, a turbine generator driven to the burn. It had never failed us yet, but it was getting old, and the mains were just down the road. So I thought we might as well get it all done and finished with. We did all the inside wiring ourselves. So you see, a farmer's a handyman, mechanic, vet, and everything these days. That is, if he's any farmer at all. We worked on into the June evenings, getting everything ready for the inspector. Then on top of that, we had the lorry with the new tractor coming up the lane. Here was everything happening at once. Improvements in the house, improvements in the farm, and the upland hay just about ready for the reaper. Right enough, it was a great day on Cold Glow Farm. There's a saying these days that if you get a boy behind the wheel early enough, the chances are he'll stay on the land. Well, Samuel had been up there on the new tractor and all looked just fine. The weather even seemed set for the next main job, getting in the hay.
You've got to work a farm to know how much your fortunes run with the weather. You plan so much hay for winter feed for your beasts. Each will take about 20 pounds a day when the winter comes. You watch the ryegrass, cocksfoot and clover grow, and you reckon its weight in the shed while it's still standing in the field. You plan to cut it young to get the most protein. You open the field with a scythe to let the tractor in. And then it happens. The wind rises, the rain clouds blow up, and that's that.
But if one thing stops me working, I get on with something else. All the more need if the future's uncertain. A lamb for the sales wants to be the proper weight, to bring the right price for the time you've kept and fed them. 80 to 90 pounds for the early market. Wilson works along with me. We pick out the ones that look like making the grade. I'd heard they weren't fetching such good prices this year, but anything could happen before next Friday. And what I'd hoped would happen, did. We got some dry, blowing days and got the hay in. We didn't stop until the job was done. When the hay's cut, it has to dry as it lies. Then it has to be turned to dry on the other side. Then it's swept and ricked. The working day's a long one at this time of year, and you're glad to have the light summer evenings until hay is all saved. On Friday, we were at the market. 6 of my crossbred lambs looked pretty good, and I'd really no fear that the grader would turn them down. The only puzzle was the price I'd get. In farming, you even reckon the worth of a meadow against the price you get for the animals you've fattened in it. Well, I was soon going to know the worst.
Seven, 90 bob. 11, 411, 12, 13, 414, 15, 416, 416, 416. We'll put them in the market with himself. They're on the market, 416, 17, 417. Yup, and it's 417 for them. Right, so well. Wait.
The farming year progresses, and the long days of summer merge into autumn. The household takes its leisure as it comes, though the times when you can lie back and relax are few and far between. The biggest work of the year lies ahead, the reaping of the corn that'll feed the poultry through the winter and give feeding straw for the other animals. Yet, at this time of the year, even at rest, the jobs and events of the future are running through your mind. The family's future relies on your thinking.
I'll cut the corn a little on the green side to ripen out in the stook. There's the byre to be washed out and cleaned up for the winter, for the cattle coming in from the fields. They need a warm, bright winter home. The muck's piling up in the midden, all right. Plenty for next year's manure. And there's Ernie and Marjorie's wedding. That'll mean his oats to be cut as well as my own, him being away on his honeymoon. Maybe we can manage a trip to the Glens some Sunday, before the days get too short. The family will like that. A lot of rain lately. Some folks say the ground will be too soft to take the tractors with all the rain there's been. But as the harvest turned out, it was no bother. With the most hot and wonderful sunshine for the main job of the year. The evening saw us still in the cornfields getting it in. 4 sheaves make a stook, and we set them to let the rain run down the sides, and for the ears to ripen on the top. As I tied the last one, I didn't like the look of the clouds much piling up behind. It could get a soaking yet. Too much could start the green growth of the ears in the stook itself. At times like this, you can but hope that nature will be kind to you. The first frost brings us more inside, though there's still plenty of work in the fields. The potato crop's been harvested. Some of our own go into Joyce's potato bread. And we're getting ready for the final event of the farming year, the threshing. That's when the place becomes alive with people. There's the big threshing machine and a dozen of the neighbours in to help. It's the best part of a day's work for everyone, and the men get very hungry at this game. So the women are busy in the house preparing the tea we'll all be ready for when the job's done. For us, this is the end of one year and the start of another. Whether the crop's been heavy or light, this is when one thing stops and another begins. Your mind's in the future, the winter feed, stored safe and sound around the farm, the cattle in their byre, and the farming family round the table by the hearth.
There's not much talk at the beginning of this meal, but as the evening wears on, for Will and Joyce and Ernie Scott, for Wilson and the children, for all the small farmers, great men round the table, talk turns to this their life of worthwhile independence. And there, on this family farm, we leave them.